Hey everybody, have you ever found yourself rooting for the villain? Well, I asked that question on Twitter and I actually found a surprising amount of responses where the people were actually responding that yes, they were in fact rooting for the villain. And some people said they always root for the villain. And when I dove deeper into this, I actually found that there is science behind this. Now that we've broken away from the one-dimensional type villains, of which I'll give examples later on in the video of one-dimensional type villains and the difference between the one-dimensional to the ones that are more modern that are being created. But there's basically science into it. In fact, the journal Psychological Science that actually published a journal on it that people may find fictional villains surprisingly likable when they share similar features with the reader or the watcher, whatever you do, read or watch, read books or watch movies or TV shows. If the villain shares a lot of features with us, then we tend to start rooting for them. And this attraction to potentially darker versions of ourselves, uh, uh, often in stories occur, even though we would be repulsed by real world individuals who have similarly immoral or unstable behaviors. One reason for this shift that research indicates is that fiction acts like a cognitive safety net, allowing us to identify with villainous characters without tainting our self image. And academics have often long suggested that people recoil from others who are in many ways similar to themselves, yet possess negative features such as obnoxiousness, instability, and treachery, and other antisocial features. Usually we would back away from those type of people because we're afraid that it might hurt our image because they share similar features to us. We're afraid that people might tie those features and that person with us. We tend to back away, but the science indicates that with fiction, when it comes to a book or a movie or a TV show, we tend to have a kind of a guilty pleasure of rooting for the villain because it acts as a safety net. It allows us to look into the darker side of ourselves a little bit further without actually tainting our self-image when it comes to other people. And we're going to explore that a little further in this video. So, just diving in a little bit more behind the science behind this, the Association for Psychological Science, they had this to say on the subject. Our research suggests that stories and fictional worlds can offer a safe haven for comparison to a villainous character that reminds us of ourselves, said Rebecca Krauss, a PhD candidate at Northwestern University and lead author on the paper. When people feel protected by the veil of fiction, they may show greater interest in learning about the dark and sinister characters who resemble them. So, just if you can hear my daughters in the background, it was my 3-year-old daughter's birthday yesterday, so they're currently playing with new toys, and I'm also recording on Father's Day. So, that's basically what's going on there. And after I record here, I'm probably going to go outside with them and start playing and maybe even go to a park. But to dive into the rise in popularity of the villain, it is actually science based. So if you do root for the villain, you're not alone. So don't feel bad. A lot of people are using it as a safety net to kind of explore their darker side, which has a psychological kind of benefit to it, and it is proving to improve a lot of people's mental health. But just to explore a few reasons why people are interested in villains more now. They're more than one dimensional. Villains offer a safe space to explore the forbidden or transgressive aspects of the human psyche. They allow audiences to vicariously experience actions and impulses that they might not be able to act on in real life. So people like to kind of live vicariously through the villain in that regard. This exploration can be psychologically distancing, allowing for identification without necessarily impacting one's self image, which is basically what the psychological Let me go back to that paper again to because I want to make sure I get their name right. And I will be citing my resources as well in the description. It's the Association for Psychological Science. That's basically what they were going over as well. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, I have my computer in front of me and I'm looking at my notes as well, because this is very science-based, so I couldn't really remember it all, so I do have some sources. But development of complex and relatable villains. So people do relate to complex villains. So again, they don't relate to the one-dimensional type villain that's just basically pure evil or anything like that. Modern storytelling has often been providing villains with detailed backstories and motivations, making them more than just one-dimensional antagonists. One of the ones I'm going to be diving deeper on is Severus Snape. He wasn't really a hero, but he wasn't really a villain. He was more of what you call an anti-hero. And they gave him such an amazing backstory that in many ways, Severus Snape is actually more popular than Harry Potter himself. And when I talk to people online, on book groups, more people actually prefer Severus Snape to Harry Potter in the conversations I've had with people. But audience can connect with villains who have experienced trauma, have understandable grievances, and are driven by a twisted sense of justice. So if people can understand why the villain is the way they are and why they're doing what they're doing, they're gonna have a kind of a guilty pleasure in rooting for them. And the complexity of villains are more engaging and allows for a deeper understanding of their choices, even if those choices are morally reprehensible. And that goes back to the safety net. We like to explore this darker side of ourselves without actually putting it forward in front of people to danger our self-image or hinder self-image. If you notice a lot of edits, if my girls are fighting or crying in the background, I'm trying to edit that out for people. But the rise in anti-heroes, with the rise in villains, has also come out with the rise in popularity among anti-heroes, which Severus Snape would more or less be considered an anti-hero because he was trying to fight against Voldemort, but a lot of what was driving Severus Snape to do what he did was basically out of vengeance and what he would consider justice. But the popularity of anti-heroes who blur the lines between hero and villain further contributes to this trend, which is what I was going over there. And I mean, with characters like Tony Soprano or Walter White, who are morally ambiguous and often engage in villainous behavior, often the protagonists in their stories, and their popularity reflects a shift in audience preferences. So, when it comes to great anti-heroes or great villains, the best ones are basically the ones where the author writes it in a way where this person sees themselves as the hero. So when it comes to Darth Vader, he sees himself as the hero. He sees himself as someone who's actually saving the galaxy and bringing balance back to the Force. And he's trying to, but it's just he's been brainwashed. So when writers who are actually listening to this video, whenever you're writing about a villain, you need to make it seem like that villain thinks that they're the hero. So now we're just going to go over a few aspects of the one-dimensional type of villain. One-dimensional villains are characters who primarily serve as antagonists without any depth at all. No complexity. There's no internal conflict. They're just purely evil, and they're just being evil for the sake of being evil. They often embody a single negative trait or motivation, making them unpredictable and less compelling. And examples include villains solely motivated by greed, power, revenge, or without exploring their motivations or inner struggles. So if you make a character or a villain that is basically one dimensional, and you don't go over their inner motivations, or their why they have greed, or why they want power, why they want revenge. If you have no inner struggle with the villain, then it's one dimensional, and the character and the reader or the watcher, they're not going to relate to your villain. So that it's not that they'll feel it's a bad thing. They might be rooting against your villain, which might be what some authors are going for, or it might be what some TV shows or movies are going for, and that's fine. But if you're looking to make a one-dimensional type of villain that you want or if you want a more than one-dimensional type of villain, one that you're actually rooting for, you definitely want something where their greed, power, or their need for revenge is explained, and you can see some type of inner struggle. Some examples of one-dimensional villains that I wrote down here, so that any writers that are watching this, they can kind of get example of the one-dimensional type of villains. Some examples include the greedy businessman that's solely driven by the desire for money and wealth, the power-hungry tyrant, which is a villain that's focused on dominating others for controlling territory or resources. They might be obsessed with military might, political maneuverings, uh, the vengeful antagonist, a villain motivated by a desire for revenge against the protagonist or another character. This revenge could stem from a past wrong or perceived injustice. Um, Basically, what I'm getting at is your run-of-the-mill type of villains, your run-of-the-mill type of antagonists. So you put it in there, and you have an extremely simple reason for what they're doing. Because in every single book, there's always a reason for the reason for why the villain might be doing what they're doing. But just because you give them a reason doesn't mean they're more than one dimensional. Again, you kind of have to give a reason and a backstory on why the villain is motivated by greed, power, revenge. You got to see some inner struggles there. So what I'm basically getting at is the best villains are the ones who are not 100% evil. They don't even have to be 75% evil. A good villain can have a little bit of evil in them, but you can see a lot of an inner struggle for what they're doing because they're mostly good. Like Severus Snape. Rowling did such a fantastic job on him as an anti-hero because you could tell the look on his face that he had a massive inner struggle for doing what he was doing whenever he was doing something that was evil. Most of it, you could tell it was bearing on his soul. But that's the reason why most people connected with him. So, at modern time, characters aren't 100% evil, but they're complex and troubled characters who have their own story. But going more on Harry Potter, everyone loved to hate Dolores Umbridge because from Harry Potter series, she was unreasonably malicious. Her reasons for being malicious, nobody agreed with. So she wasn't one you kind of rooted for. Everybody was rooting against her. I don't know anybody who wasn't standing up on their feet, applauding and cheering when Dolores Umbridge finally met her demise, which I won't go through here because I always try not to spoil anything. And although most people have seen or read Harry Potter, not everybody has, and some people do want to read the book or watch the movie, and they've never done it yet. But basically, she was just self-serving, but many antagonists actually have a point which we can see and often accept, which makes us connect with them more. So here I have the Queen from Snow White. She is also a very one-dimensional type of villain because she's solely motivated by envy and a desire to be the fairest in the land, with no other discriminable personality traits at all. Whenever you think of Snow White and the evil queen, basically evil queen, the sole whole reason why she's doing what she's doing is the magic mirror on the wall stops telling her that she's the fairest in the land. So that's the pure reason of why she goes after Snow White. So that's very much a one-dimensional type of villain that we're talking about. That's 100% evil, and she's unreasonably evil. So we're not going to be nobody's going to be rooting for her, because whenever people have a dark side in them, the dark side is usually never unreasonable. Now, here we have Sauron, and he embodies pure evil and a lust for power, with little exploration for his motivations beyond that. Whenever you read The Lord of the Rings, basically the whole reason Tolkien gives for Sauron for wanting power is just he wants power. That's the whole thing. He wants power just to have power. He doesn't actually explain his backstory or his reason for power. I have no idea what Sauron's story was leading up to him making the rings. I don't know if there's a book about it out there. If it is, leave it in the comments section. I'd love to read it. But basically, there's little reason, if any, of why Sauron wanted power in the first place. So here again, I have Dolores Umbridge, because she is absolutely the perfect example of a one-dimensional type of villain. Because Dolores Umbridge, she's cruel and malicious, and her motivations are basically primarily based on a desire for control and upholding the rules, even when those rules are completely unjust and absolutely unreasonable, which is why everybody was rooting for her demise. So in this example, Highball stated that they were rooting for Jackson Caravel, both Victor and Eli in the villains, and Holland in Shades of Magic, Luke in Percy Jackson, and asked them if they related to them in some way and if that was the reason why they were rooting for these villains. And this individual stated that it was their backstories that made them sympathize with the characters. And in Jack's case, he was funny, and Tella's other love interest was more annoying. So this is what this is an example, an excellent example of a more than one dimensional villain, and what made a reader connect with this villain and root for them. So this is a more than excellent example. And as promised, I stated I would expand on Severus Snape and basically tell you why he is the perfect example of a more than one-dimensional type of character that isn't exactly a hero but isn't exactly a villain, and what make people definitely want to root for him. People love Severus Snape for his complexity and moral ambiguity. He's a character who evokes strong emotions, from hatred to sympathy, due to his contradictory nature. While he can be cruel and vindictive, people, particularly towards Harry Potter, people love or his love for Lily Evans and his ultimate sacrifice to protect Harry and make him people find him to be compelling and ultimately a tragic figure. So Snape is he's not a straightforward hero or villain. His flaws like bitterness and vindictiveness make him relatable. He's not perfect, and his internal struggles and contradictions are what make him so fascinating. His unwavering loyalty to Dumbledore and willingness to protect Harry, despite his personal feelings, demonstrates capacity for deep love and sacrifice. His difficult childhood, his unrequited love for Lily, and his association with the Death Eaters create a tragic narrative that resonates with many readers. This duality between both light and dark magic to his mystique and intrigue. He's skilled wizard. He's a very skilled wizard with a deep understanding of both the dark and arts and healing magic, highlighting his complex nature. His morally gray character. Snape's actions are not always easy to categorize as purely good or evil. He makes choices that both are heroic and questionable, forcing readers to confront their own ideas about morality and redemption. He's a very compelling figure in a series of morally straightforward characters. Many of the other characters in the Harry Potter series are more easily defined as good or evil. You can put them in one or the other very easily. Snape, with his complexities and internal conflicts, stands out as a more nuanced and realistic character. He's masterfully portrayed by Alan Rickman, in my opinion. The portrayal of Snape in the films by Alan Rickman is often cited as a major factor in the character's popularity. His nuanced performance brought Snape's complexities to life, in my opinion, quite masterfully. So, when wrapping this up, when it comes to villains or anti heroes, the rise in popularity when it comes to the villain perspective is basically explaining in a backstory of why they do what they do. Especially if you can somehow make the villain into thinking that he's actually the hero. In this way, people can more relate to them. If you give them a reason of why they have agreed, of why they have this lust for vengeance, and you can put the reason in a backstory, people are going they're definitely gonna emphasize with the villain, and they're going to definitely start to root for them. I think when Rowling unraveled Snape's love for Lily, and when Dumbledore asked Snape, really, even after all this time, and Snape looked right at Dumbledore and said, "Always." People fell in love with him right there. People were, if they weren't rooting for him before that, they were definitely rooting for him after that. So that basically sums up this video, and the rise in popularity of the villain perspective. Hit like, comment, and subscribe to my video, and just let me know what you think and give me your opinions and examples of what's the villains that would stand out that you root for, and I'll catch you on the next one.